everyone, welcome to the Pole Strong podcast with me, your host, Becky Dunn. Delighted today to introduce you to the amazing Emily Laura. She is a pole and flexibility instructor and a specialist in functional range conditioning mobility. Emily is also an off the pole ambassador. Emily, thanks for joining me.
Oh, thank you for inviting me.
Oh, this is so exciting. I've been starting off with this for everyone, by the way, because I feel like it's such a good segue in. How are you and how have you found the last year?
Oh, well, today I'm fine. The last year has just been bonkers, hasn't it? It's just been crazy for everyone.
Yeah.
But in some ways, I've had quite a good year, really. So before the pandemic hit, literally like a few weeks before I found out I was expecting my second child.
Yes, I feel like I know your journey, by the way. I've been following you for so long. I remember when you were pregnant with Arthur.
Yep.
I remember I watched you be pregnant with Rupert, and I feel like you go on these journeys with people.
Yeah, so like for me, the pandemic, it was a good time for me to slow down anyway, because I was getting so big. And then like I've been wanting to do, I was massive at the end. And I've been wanting to do so much training, but I hadn't had time to fit it in, like the FRC stuff. And then all of a sudden everything comes online. And I was like, great, I'm just going to learn everything I can. And then coming back from I'm just looking at him over there playing with his toys. Like coming back from having a baby, actually being able to train from home with instructors from around the world has just been a godsend.
Hasn't it just?
It's been amazing. Like I put him to bed and then I go and do 2 hours with Carmine Black. Like I never thought that would work, but it does.
Yeah, because even for you, like I said this the other day, it doesn't matter what level you are, you can always learn, and it's always amazing to learn from other people. And even if you're at the start of your pole journey or you've been poling for a long time, to learn from others and just to see how they teach people.
Yeah,
you can learn so much and broaden your own knowledge.
Absolutely. And just to be a student again is nice.
Oh, isn't it just?
So nice.
I did some training with a studio out in Amsterdam, and that was so much fun.
Yeah,
like just like you say, to learn new things, be a student, be on the other end of it. It was so nice.
Exciting. It is exciting.
Yeah. So where did it all start for you? When did you get into pole? How long have you been doing this for?
This makes me feel really old. I've been poling for 10 years this year.
Wow.
Yeah. So I started let's start back at the beginning. So when I met my husband, we used to do martial arts together at university.
No way.
He was better than me.
What discipline?
Brazilian jiu-jitsu.
Oh yeah.
So we used to do that at uni. So I did that for 3 years. Before that, I had like a very equestrian background. But then when I moved in with Chris, I just needed a hobby of my own.
Yeah, definitely.
I love him, but if you live together and you're training together 3-4 times a week, it's just too much. So I started adult ballet. And
okay.
That lasted 2 lessons.
Why didn't you like that?
I think the class, I'm going to sound really mean, the class I did was full of a lot older women.
Right. Okay, I see.
I was still very, very fit.
So
it just didn't challenge me in any way.
Yeah, fair enough.
And basically, as I was leaving that class, they had a pole class in the room next door. And I was
no way.
I was like, yeah, that looks fun. So I signed up, I went on my own. And yeah, it's been 10 years now.
Wow. Now, I do know a little bit about your background, and because one of my good friends attended quite a few classes with my Body Rocks, and she's done she raves very highly of you and your flexibility classes. And I know that you were a lawyer before, right?
I was a lawyer.
Your pathways, like you have so much to give.
I was a lawyer for 6 years doing commercial property.
How was that?
The money was good.
The stressful.
Yeah, and like I love studying. People read about me. I'm such a nerd, so I loved law school. I did an English literature degree, then I did the conversion course to become a lawyer.
Wow.
And I just found, like, when I went into the office environment, law school's very academic. I loved that. Being a lawyer isn't. It's about dealing with people and office politics. Oh my God, I hate office politics. And and
I'd hear you on that.
And managing people, and my heart just wasn't in it. And when I did my training contract, I was involved on a huge case to do with oil rights in Kurdistan. It was worth 50 billion.
Wow. What an amazing thing, again, to just like to get that exposure from a corporate side of things.
But equally, I would get to the office at 8 a.m. and I would leave at 2 a.m. Yeah.
How is that? That's not even okay.
No.
Wow.
It was kind of what was expected. And like the firm I trained at was very much bums on seats. And I just was like, this isn't me. Like, I want to go, like, I'll work hard, but I want to go home as well.
Yeah, no, it's that work-life balance, right?
There was no work-life balance. And I remember sitting in an office with a partner who was in his 40s, and he had worked his butt off to be there, but he didn't have a social life. He didn't have a partner. He desperately wanted a partner.
Oh.
And he would tell me he was lonely when he went home. And I was like, that's because I was like, you're never at home, Bo. You're here. So I sort of just decided very early.
It must have been like quite a reality check as well, because when you work with people like that, you almost think, if I continue doing this, I'm going to end up the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I
never would end up the same.
I never want to do that. No. So when did you start transitioning down to, because you do this full time now, right?
Yeah. So I worked in London for a couple of years. Then I moved to a law firm in Surrey, which, yes, it had better hours, but where it was located, the commute wasn't great for me. M25. Yeah. And then when I was there, they started making redundancies in my department. And they basically made the two partners I worked for redundant. And I just was like, this isn't a nice environment anymore. And it just so happened that a lawyer I was working opposite, so he ran the law firm that I was working opposite, he was recruiting in Reigate, which is 10 minutes from my house.
Oh, okay. So nice and convenient.
Yeah, and he just said to me, he's like, you don't sound very happy. Fancy moving? And I was like, yes, if I can go part-time. So yeah, they took me on 4 days a week. So I would do 3 full days, 2 half days, and I'd go and teach and train on those half days and the weekends. And then I had Arthur, and Arthur has complex needs. Just balancing him with his needs with working full-time working part-time, it was just never going to work.
No, and it's putting your priorities where you feel like you need to.
They just were never going to be flexible. Like, they knew what was going on, and I said, can I go down to 3 days a week? And they said no. So I said bye.
Yeah, bye. but it is right, because it gets to a point in your life where you think you're the main character here. You need to do what's right for you. At what, people dictate stuff in your life, and a lot of people just accept it.
Yeah.
And because you think that's the way of working life, and actually, no, this isn't going to work for me. So sometimes you have to make that leap, right? And be like, no, stuff this. I'm
going.
Bye. I'm going. Yeah.
And now it works really well for me, because my husband works in the day. I look after the kids. He then, I say, comes home. He works from home, so he doesn't come home. Comes out of his office. He takes over the kids. I go out and teach in the evening. So, I'm not having to pay for nursery. I'm not having to worry about Arthur getting to his appointments. Yeah, it
works for you. Yeah. Oh, that's perfect. Like, just to have that nice. You sound like you've got it all down to where you want it to be in terms of like your work-life balance. That sounds so great. So where you are now, is that is this your pole room?
This is my dining room, which does have my pole.
There it is. There it is.
Yeah, which is, it's useful to have it at home, but there is like my light fitting right there, and then windows behind it. So I can't do much, but I can still train.
Did you have a pole up before the pandemic, or was this as a result of the pandemic?
I had, when I started pole, I had a pole up.
Okay.
And I think that's how I became strong. I was obsessive with my training in the beginning. So I would literally come home from the office, not when I was doing those 2 a.m.
Yeah, training at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, when it got a bit more normal. So I'd come home at 7, and then I'd train for a couple of hours at home, and then I'd do my lessons on the weekend. Then when we moved to this house and I had Arthur, I did put it up, but I just didn't get into training at home as much. And I moved to a studio that was 10 minutes. It's 10 minutes away from me. So I used to just go in. But now, pandemic, I was like, right, let's get it back out the loft, stick it up.
Yeah, you've got to, haven't you? You've got to, put that time in for yourself. So when I'm just taking this from what I see on Instagram, by the way, as we all do, you look like you have your set training time. It seems to me that you, just from the outside perspective, you really dedicate time to your training now and your mobility and really building your strength back up. Just from someone that's had kids and moving and transitioning back to getting back on the pole. I mean, we've seen so many people across the industry do it. You, oh my God, Sarah Scott, Michelle Shimmy, everyone's doing it. Jade Flash, and all of you give me faith. Because when you're like, you think that when you're going to get pregnant, you're never going to be able to get your body back. And actually all of these really empowering women across the industry are doing it. And it's like, okay, they can do it, everyone else can. So how have you found that? Because you've I remember after Arthur you bounced, you got back.
I got back. So
great.
Thanks. After Arthur, I took a lot longer to come back, but that's because I was a first-time mum.
Yes.
So it's like, whoa, there's a baby. And secondly, he had, very his needs. There was a lot to learn in that.
Of course, yeah.
And then with Rupert, who was probably the slightly more neglected second child. It was a bit. He's getting raspberries blown on him right now. It's very cute. It was definitely easier coming back from Rupert because I knew what to expect.
Yeah,
like I'd been through it before. I would say that as well. My births were very different. So Arthur was a 48-hour labour and then an emergency C-section. Yeah, and then he spent weeks in intensive care. So I
bless him
very well.
Yeah. And it must have been a really traumatic period as well, just going through that. I mean, I can't really speak from experience. I'm just gathering that it just must have been such a traumatic experience.
We couldn't stay with him in hospital. They don't let you stay by the cot side in intensive care. So we would go and sit with him in the day. And then at night time, luckily we could stay locally, but I was leaving my newborn baby.
Yeah, that must have been so hard.
So then when Rupert came along, they gave me my options and they said, would you like an elective C-section? I was like, yes, I would.
I'll take it.
So I kind of approached it. I mean, with Arthur, I hypnobirthed. I was very calm. I was very relaxed. Nothing went wrong in my labour. It just took a very long time and I was exhausted. Whereas with Rupert, like I had a fixed date. I knew the day he was coming. So I had meal prepped. I had stuff in the freezer. The night before I carb loaded. I had a massive protein and then pasta meal.
I love that.
Well, you have to starve. You're not allowed to eat because it's the spinal.
Oh, okay.
You're not allowed to eat from midnight the day before. So I ate until midnight. Stopped.
All of the carbs, get it in.
Everything. So yeah, I was well rested and recovered for that C-section. So that's probably one of the reasons I bounced back a lot quicker this time. So with Arthur, I took 3 or 4 months off and then started slowly coming back. With Rupert, I came back to teaching within 10 weeks.
Oh wow! So it's a lot quicker.
Yeah, a lot quicker. But for me, it was being able to dedicate like half an hour a day to my rehab and understanding how to do it. Obviously I said I'm doing the training at the moment, but a lot of women I've found don't always know how to rehab their pelvic floor.
Yes.
And I would absolutely recommend you go and see a pelvic floor physio even before you have your baby, so they can set you up with simple exercises that you can do afterwards.
Yeah.
I started my rehab the day after he was born.
Wow.
It's just simple breathing stuff, but that really helps.
It goes a long way, doesn't it? Well, clearly it does.
Yeah.
So is that because obviously I started recording this after you said about the new course that you're doing, so you can tell everybody what you're doing. So what is it now you're going to be studying?
So I'm training to be a pregnancy and postnatal corrective exercise specialist.
I feel like this is needed in the industry too.
I do, and not just in the pole industry.
No.
I would like to specialise obviously in pole, but for me, in my local area, you can do pregnancy yoga, you can do postnatal yoga. Wasn't very core restore focus. I've had diastasis with both kids. Diastasis is normal. Like, a lot of people get upset if they've had ab separation. It's completely normal. I had 3 fingers when they were born. Wow. It's down to 1 now. It will get
getting back. Coming.
But no, like, I have gone to different fitness instructors. I've done different programs. No one has actually given me exercises. They focus on Kegels.
Right.
And you need a strong pelvic floor. But actually, for me, my pelvic floor is overactive. I actually needed to learn to relax my pelvic floor in order to heal my diastasis. And that's kind of what I've learned through this course.
So was yours overactive before having children, or is it just before? Do you know what just before?
Because I'm a pole dancer and I squeeze too much, and then I do this is just me all over. I tense up and I don't relax.
I can, when we're doing those moves that we really want to get, and you just, when you're filming sometimes and you think, please don't see my face, please don't see when you're like squeezing everything on your face.
Like a baby pop. So it's definitely something I want to bring into the industry. Like, I would love to do a kind of return to pole course.
What a great idea.
But I just gotta finish that study.
Well, that's it. So how do you structure your days, your time? How do you structure your time for studying and training, and how much time do you dedicate to that?
So both. I love a list and a planner. I have a monthly planner. I can't deal with weekly planners. I have to have a monthly, because you know what it's like with teaching. Some weeks you can be round and the next week you can be quiet. So I like to do my full month. So I have 1 day a week where Arthur's at school, Rupert's with his nana. That's my training day. So I will drop them off and I will go to the studio. I tend to do a private lesson with my amazing coach, Pole Fiction, who does heels and edge work stuff. We do a Zoom. I love her. And then I will continue to train afterwards. Some days I could just do an hour. Yes, this Thursday I ended up doing 4 hours and died. Wow. But you know what it's like. Sometimes you just have motivation to do it.
Sometimes the energy just doesn't burn off. Like sometimes you do an hour and a half and you're like, I can keep going. Stuff it, I am going to keep going. When is this energy going to burn out? And I actually find that it's actually when you get home and then you stop, and I just crash and burn. It's awful.
Friday I definitely felt it. But I try to, so Thursdays is like my big training day, and then I just try and do it around the kids. So for me, like, I can usually do an hour or 2 Monday, Tuesday when they're napping. Wednesday I try to have off, and that's when I will fit my studying in.
Okay, so like supplement the time that you would be training with studying.
Thursdays I go to the studio. Fridays I see how I feel. It depends how Thursdays go.
Well, it's something that you can compensate for that though, can't you? Like, sometimes if you have a really big session, you sort of are like, well, I can have that day off. So you can balance that out.
And I think the biggest thing for me has been learning to juggle teaching and training. So it is hard, and I have now said that if I teach, I will not do more than 5 hours of teaching in a day. It's just
that is a lot anyway.
Too much otherwise. And I don't know about anyone else who's taught like flexibility online, but I find those classes are more like, if I was in the studio, I'd demonstrate the stretch and then I'd circulate the room and help everyone. But online, obviously I can't do that. So I would do the full class. So that's my splits training done.
This is what I do think as well, when you do teach, sometimes if I feel like I want to train but I can't fit it in, I will just make sure I'm a bit more present on the equipment with pole or hoop. Maybe if there's a space in the class, maybe I'll take a turn and get my conditioning in a little bit and so you do still get something out of it. And on the flip side of that, if you're really tired, you can and you can say to girls, do your tucks, do your pikes, and they know what you're talking about, and you don't have to be sort of as active
Yeah, exactly.
During the lesson.
Yeah.
But how have you found teaching flexibility at home? Like you say, it must be quite difficult because you, like you say, you want to be able to not spot people, but you want to be able to give adjust and give guidance. And
so my teaching style has completely and utterly changed in the past.
Yeah. In what respect? How has it changed?
I've always been a nerd, so I have always loved. So, put it out there. I am a nerd.
Own it.
I've always loved knowing about the muscles. So whenever I'm learning a stretch and flexibility, I want to know what muscle I'm using, what's lengthening, what's contracting, where the insertion is, where the origin is, how the joint's moving. So I always had that when I was teaching, but in the classroom, in the studio, there was a bit more banter. So I didn't always give the students all of that information, and I didn't always think they wanted that information. So when I started teaching online, I remember the first one I did, it suddenly, you're in a room on your own and it's quiet, and you're conscious that other people are also in a room on their own, quiet. They don't have anyone to talk to. So I just started chatting.
I know, you waffle. I feel like I remember saying to the girls, like, you can unmute and talk to me, please.
Yeah. So I remember like the first few classes, and I started talking about muscles, and I started telling them, like, your hamstring attaches to your sit bones and behind your knee, so you want to take your sit bone away from the knee to make the stretch. And I was just started to get really good feedback from it. So I just embraced the nerd side of my teaching.
I absolutely think you do. I think it's something that is so powerful. Knowledge is power. And it was something that my friend had said to me, actually, when she did your flexibility class, like the in-depth knowledge that you carry is incredible. And she said to me that you make people think about using their muscles in a completely different way. And that is, exceptional.
Thank you. And I think with online, because I couldn't, I always use a hamstring stretch as an example, because I couldn't be there to be like, right, arch your back. I had to describe it. I had to verbally describe it. But it builds so much more awareness in the student's body. Now, when they're returning to pole and I'm teaching them flexible moves on the pole, I had one girl, we were doing a split. And she came down, she said, oh, that wasn't very good for me. She's like, I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to really think about contracting my hip flexor and then squeezing my quad. And I was like, yes, you listened. And then she did like a split.
Amazing. So are you still teaching flexibility online at the moment?
Yeah. So all of my classes for My Body Rocks is in the studio and online. So we're doing hybrid.
Okay, can you tell me what days I need to come to one of your flexibility classes? I honestly need to have some of this knowledge.
So with My Body Rocks, I do Fridays at the moment. That's going to change. Sundays and Mondays. So it will always be Sundays and Mondays. And then I do my own stuff, which is booked through Bookwen, like bookwen.com/Emily Laura. And I do every other Saturday. So like in 2 weeks' time, I'm doing a needle scales class.
I saw that.
Yeah, that's a 90-minute class. And I also do, this is teaching for myself, I do online 6-week programs as well now.
I saw those recently be advertised, that you've just started that. And what was the uptake on that? Was that really popular? Seems popular.
So front splits academy sold out in half an hour.
Wow.
Middle splits sold out in a couple of hours. I know middle splits is less popular.
Middle splits is less popular because it's hard.
Yeah, it is hard. It's really hard.
It's hard.
And then I'm doing a needle scales one, which starts in August, and that's only gone up online, but it's already a third booked. But
that's amazing.
My goal with those, I'm not like guaranteeing that you're going to get a flat split or a needle scale, but it's 6 weeks. We start with a general class. So like we start with, for middle splits, start with a general middle splits class. Then it's mobility, then it's glute focus, then it's adductor focus, then it's hamstring focus, and then another general class. So the aim is for my students to understand how you achieve all of the different components, all of the different muscles and the nerves and the mobility, so they can go away and feel confident about training on their own.
Yeah, and I think that's a really big thing as well. Something that I say a lot to students is even if you don't achieve what you want to achieve today, just to be able to walk away and understand what you need to do, what's missing, what you need to work on. It's, you still want to be able to take that away. So yeah, it's providing people with that knowledge, isn't it, to be able to do it by themselves and safely.
Yeah, and the other thing I do with it is they get individual feedback from me, and I have a consultation form that they fill out, so I know what their lifestyle is. So I'm not just saying to them, you need to train 6 times a week, because that's not achievable. That's not achievable at all for most people. Whereas I look at the form and I'll be like, okay, you spend 40 hours a day at work. You need to do mobility stuff. And this is what you could fit into your day. So I try and give them movement snacks almost.
Love that.
Just so they don't stay sitting, because that's going to, make your hip flexors tight, and it's just not great, is it?
No, but that level of attention to detail is excellent.
They get a lot. We get to know each other very well in 6 months.
No, that's great. So where did that interest start from you? When was it you enjoyed learning anyway, so but what was it about because what you just described about what you like about learning functional movements and flexibility, it's very detail orientated in terms of knowing where everything connects and what, all of that level of detail. Where did that start? At what point were you like, this interests me, I want to learn more about how this works?
I think so. I started teaching 8 years ago, and to start with, so I always feel like I should say this, when I started pole, I could not touch my toes. I was very, very inflexible.
Wow.
My husband, when I'm stretching, sometimes he comes in and he's like, oh, I remember when you said you'd never be able to do the splits. Oh, look at you.
Oh, yes.
So I then decided to do competitions. And my coach at the time was like, you need to do flexibility, you need a flexible move. So then I started training it, and I just fell in love with it. And I did the instructor training. And this was a long time ago, and I know instructor training courses have changed. But for me, I just never felt like I knew enough to safely talk someone through a movement. So then, so that was the kind of online few hours courses and weekend courses. You can't cover the whole human body in a weekend. You just
no.
So then I did my yoga teaching diploma, which I did the diploma because it had a huge anatomy section, and that's what kind of really got my interest going. But even that I didn't feel was enough, so I went on to just study anatomy on its own.
Wow.
And then all the mobility stuff. I find the human body fascinating. I really want to go to is it Body Works? Where they like
yes. Yeah. We went to one in Amsterdam. And they're like the museums you're on about, actually we looked at going, and I was like, I don't think I can go. I don't know if I can look in that much detail, because it's so bizarre.
I think part of me would love to do it. Part of me would love to do a dissection. I know that sounds really gross.
Well, you have this big interest in it, so I can see why.
As long as someone else cuts through the skin, because that's a bit that I can't cope with. You're babe. It's like if I'm watching a medical program, I can't look at that part. But when they're in there, I'm fine.
Oh God. But no, you're right. If you have that interest in it, because you get to see the muscle stripped back.
Yeah.
Like you get to actually see how it connects and how it works, and so I can understand.
When I did the FRC, they were talking about how, everyone thinks that you have your muscles and you have your ligaments and you have your bones and you have your tendons, and they're all separate components, when really it isn't like that. There's just a division where there's more, type of one cell on one side than on the other side. There isn't like a muscle stops here and it becomes a tendon. It kind of flows.
Yeah.
And yeah, when I saw that on I think they had a dissected arm, I was like, wow, that's just amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, what I find incredible, and the more I've learned about it, I'm like, right, okay, and I understand more, is how everything connects. Yeah. Like, just because, so when last year I had a glute injury. It was horrendous. I was out for 6 weeks. I'm now very, very, very conscious on warming up my glutes and activating those muscles before I do anything else. And you learn from mistake, and I would never do it again. But something that was really interesting is, depending on what side you pull, your body compensates. And I was really lopsided.
Yeah.
And it's all attached, like the bottom of your back and the top of your shoulder, and even with your neck and all the alignment, like everything is connected. And just because you think it might be one area, it actually is probably something else.
And even like, so people tend to think just about muscles, whereas I love the nervous system as well. And like, you have your central nervous system, which is your brain and your spinal cord. Every other nerve in your body comes out of your spinal cord.
Yes.
So if you glide your spinal cord, you're warming up all of the nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And then people forget about fascia as well. You have huge bands of fascia that cover huge swathes from your shoulder down to your back.
Yes.
And people don't think about sort of loosening that area as well. I mean, that's something that's a little bit more massagey. Ooh, lovely massage. Then
we all need those.
Oh yes, please. But people don't think about, or they don't, well, not that they don't think about it, they don't know, because if no one's told them, why would they know?
No, you're totally right. So when it comes to stretching and mobility, what is your favorite thing what is your go-to? What do you think you're the best at? You're knowledgeable in all areas, but for you personally, do you prefer doing front splits, middle splits, or back? What's your favorite?
Ooh, okay. I would have previously said back.
Mm-hmm.
Having the kids, I've definitely gone more into my hips. I think probably front splits is my favorite. I love a front split shape. It's just beautiful. But also, so for me, I had my right hip completely reconstructed when I was younger due to a hereditary issue that my mum passed down. Thanks, Mum.
Yeah, cheers for that.
So I always had in my head, I will never be able to do the splits because I've had this huge surgery. There's a lot of scar tissue there. Yeah, that was on my right side. That's the side that I can now lift in a needle scale and touch my head with my calf. So
wow.
I think the fact that I can do that is always slightly amazes me still. I still love needle scales because it's just so beautiful, isn't it?
Needle scales are absolutely stunning. Something I need to, this is why I know that I know I need to see someone about my flexibility. I want to go to the next level in my flexibility, and I know I need to see a specialist. So this is why I was like, when are your classes? And I've heard about how amazing they are, and I don't know why I haven't done them sooner. I looked at them too, and I feel like there is still that, like, a bit of, not scared, that's not the right word, but you're like, I don't like, still going on to an online class for the first time is still that, like, I don't know what to expect. You know, and I've wanted to do it for so long.
Yeah, and I still do recording, so even if you don't want to do it live, like, people can follow the recordings.
Yeah, well, it's this is it, because for me it was finding the time to do it too, because I'm so on the go. But if you have those recordings, I mean, something that I really struggle with actually is having and I know quite a few people have the same, and I don't know if it's a common thing, but when you're learning to front split, it's that back hip flexor.
Yeah, hip flexor, always hip flexor. And
it's a bugger.
If you think about like the anatomy of it, if you think how long your hamstrings are, so they attach to your sit bone and they end behind your knee, that's quite a long muscle. Whereas you've got two hip flexors. You've got the one that attaches to your T12 and wraps around the front, and then the one that's just deep in the hip socket. First of all, a lot of people arch their back to stretch it, but if it's in your back and you're arching, it's putting that muscle on slack. So you need to round.
Interesting.
Tuck your pelvis under and round to get that one that's up high. And then the one in the hip joint, it's such a short, I'm like indicating to my hip and no one can actually see that. It's such a short, fat muscle. Of course, it's going to take longer to stretch. You know, your hamstrings are this long. It's easy for them to increase by a few inches. It's not much to them. But your hip flexors are a short, fat muscle. It's harder. And there's so much going on around the pelvis.
Well, this is it. And you see so much, and you just, once you get your exercises that I feel like with my like flexibility routine, I've got my go-to exercises and that's it. I don't really do anything more. And this is why I think people, if you're looking to increase your flexibility,
you've got to find someone
to do it.
I still have a coach. I still go to someone else because I get bored of my own stuff, and then I get lazy in my own stuff.
Oh, okay.
Because you just kind of, I don't know, you lose interest a little bit. So
but you get to choose what you do and don't do, and that is where it's, where you're a bit like, I don't really fancy doing this today, so I'm not going to do it, although I probably should. Yeah. No, I get that.
But I'd say like the most important thing is active flexibility.
Oh, I was talking about this with someone else on the pod the other day. It's the active flexibility is the hardest part.
But the way I teach active flexibility, it's not all just lift your leg up and hold it in the air. Sometimes I make you do that. For me, I do quite a lot of what would be called active static flexibility. So you're not necessarily moving, but I'm telling you what muscles to contract. And when you do the contraction, you will feel the other muscles stretch more.
Wow.
So then, yeah, it's for me, it's all about knowing which muscle to contract and which joint to move, rather than just being able to hold your leg up in the air, because for some students that's not achievable and they're not gonna feel like they've gained anything.
But I think the biggest part of it is not knowing what muscles contract, knowing what should I be feeling, when should I be stopping, what should be engaging, because you don't, do you? This is why it's important to learn and to understand.
I think one of the biggest things in this industry, and I've had disagreements with some quite well-known pole dancers.
Disagreements.
I mean, we get on fine. We just don't.
Everyone has their own opinion on it too, right? So
yeah. But the biggest thing I hate is this whole suck it up, push through the pain. No. Don't ever do that in stretching. And when I actually explained it to this other pole dancer, he did back off and was like, I never thought of it like that. Like, pain is your body's way of telling you something is wrong. So if you go into an extreme position like a split and you are in pain and you hold it there, your nervous system is learning that this is not comfortable. So then your stretch reflex will remember that. So next time you go into your splits, it's going to go, oh my God, this is really painful. I'm going to pull her out. I'm going to save her. That's my job. I've got to save her. And you're not going to progress.
Yeah, but also what happens is you're in a part where you're stretching and you're in pain, then the muscle pulls, then you're out for 3 months, and you're out for 3 months, or maybe not, but I pulled my hamstring 3 times whilst I was trying to do a jade split. I wasn't doing it properly, I wasn't warm, I didn't really know what I was doing. That's it, my left hamstring was gone for 3 months. I was out. What a waste. What, so pointless, not even worth it.
And even when you've like recovered from it, you've done your rehab, your nerves still going to remember that. You have to
I still have issues with jade split because I'm petrified that my hamstring's going to go.
To be honest, I don't necessarily love jade split. Oh, the burn on my thigh.
It's always been a bit of a nemesis for me because I've always struggled with, and I think it's because I tried to pull my leg I tried to pull so much and I pinged it, and then I pinged it on my right hamstring. When will I ever learn? Clearly I didn't learn from the past 4 mistakes. I was like, you know what, stuff it, I'll try it on my right side. Then ping.
In that one, people focus on pulling the leg towards the body and they don't think about sending the hip flexor leg away.
I know, and sending that back leg down.
So for me, I know that my hip flexor is more flexible than my hamstrings because of how I've trained it. So for me, I'm pushing that. My butt, like you could bounce pennies off my butt. It is so tight at that point.
But it's learning how to do that. And again, it's just things that you don't always think about.
It's okay to like not know. You know, that's why you go to classes.
Yeah, but I think with flexibility, it's something that people don't take as seriously as training. Like we all go and we all want to increase our strength and we all want to get our inverts and your butterflies, but I feel like flexibility is quite far down the list until you take it a bit more, until you start training a bit more, and then you're like, right, okay, if I want to get that move, I'm going to have to be.
Yeah, but I would like people in the pole world to think of flexibility and mobility not just in terms of like jade splits or eagles or, you know, flexible moves. You need a lot of flexibility to deadlift.
Yeah.
You know,
that is where your head goes. You're totally right. When I think flexibility, I'm like birds of paradise, eagle, jade split. You don't ever think about anything else.
Think of a basic straddle invert. You need your adductors to work, you need your hip flexors to contract, you need your hamstrings to lengthen. If you're going to straighten your arms, you need a decent amount of shoulder flexion. Yeah, it's not just they're not just strength moves. You need mobility and flexibility.
And it all needs to come in side by side.
Yeah.
But this is when people realize that it can take up a lot of your time.
It does, yeah, it does,
to progress. And also stretching can be quite boring. I feel like stretching's got a bad name for itself. When people think stretching, they think it's boring, but that's what needs to be changed. It's not. We need to make it fun.
Yeah. So when I was like on my mission to become flexible, I used to watch a Disney film at the same time.
Love it. I thought you might have said Harry Potter, Emily. I thought that's
Harry Potter's a bit long. Harry Potter's a bit long for stretching. But a Disney film, like you can sing along to it, so you're still breathing.
Yes. Under the sea.
Yeah, I think Harry Potter, I'd get too invested in watching the film. Even though I know it inside out. Or just come to my class, because I'll waffle at you for an hour.
Listen, you just said you need to embrace your inner nerd. This is totally fine. You love Harry Potter, it's great. So yeah, it's that's a good way of thinking about it. Put a film on.
Yeah.
And stretch.
And Disney does work because it's not too long.
This is true. So what does your downtime look like? What does downtime mean to you? So you're quite busy, you're teaching, you've got 2 children, husband. What does your downtime look like? When do you block time out?
What is downtime?
Oh, everyone says the same. Everyone. And do you know what? It's so funny because I talk to people about downtime. I don't get much downtime myself, and I don't know what I'm expecting the answer to be, because we're clearly all very, very busy people.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, if I have an evening free, I go to bed really early because I just want sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, for us, we do tend to stay in.
Love it.
We stay in. We put the kids to bed. We'll put some telly on, and then we'll go to sleep. Like I love cooking. I love eating, so I'm more than happy to cook a nice meal, stay in, and do that.
I do exactly the same, and that to me is everything.
Yeah.
I don't really like going out that much. I'm such an old soul.
I don't like going out, and I like it even less now. Like, I think the pandemic's made me really antisocial.
Me and my husband, I'm not joking, we haven't been out for dinner since everything's reopened.
We've not been out for dinner since, I'm looking at him, like, I can't actually remember when, like, just the 2 of us went out.
I'm okay with that, though.
We had one night away after Arthur was born, and that was probably like 2.5 years ago. But I'm okay with it.
So am I. This is the life that I love.
Yeah.
I am
a hot tub at home. That would,
yeah,
really,
that would be nice. So with your like recovery and massage, well, I tag in massage when I say this. Do you get regular massages? Is that something that's quite big for you? So
I used to back in the day when I did competitions. I didn't do many. Like I had one.
No, I was going to ask this because it's not in your. I was just looking at your bio.
Not big. No, so a lot of people ask me why I don't compete, and I have competed. I did pole theatre, the second pole theatre in the UK, so that was quite a long time ago. For me, so as a child, my mum is equestrian, is horsey, and I used to, every weekend we did shows, and then as a teenager, I represented England on the dressage team.
Wow, that's so cool.
I competed every bloody weekend, and that was my, like, I don't have many childhood friends because it would be go to school, come home, do the horses, compete at the weekend, do your homework, study. Then I went into a very, very competitive job.
Yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I feel like I should do a competition to prove that I'm I'm good at what I do. And I just didn't enjoy it. I've got to be honest. That 5 minutes on the stage, everyone else walked off elated and were like, I can't wait to do that again. And I was like,
thank God that was over.
It wasn't even that. It wasn't even thank God it was over. I was just like, okay.
Yeah, there was no, because you have that adrenaline, don't you, when you finish performing on stage, and almost like, I want to do it again.
Yeah, I know that never clicked in for me. So I just focused on my studying, and the pandemic's been great at me getting known as a teacher because it's opened up the online stuff. I just don't feel the need. I don't know what it would prove for me anymore, if that makes sense. And
I do feel like you do feel like that little bit of pressure, because I've never competed, and I feel like people expect you to compete.
Yeah.
Or people People think that your journey would be completed if you competed, and that's fine if you want. Like I was speaking to I was speaking to Jay Benson the other day, and she
loves it.
She loves it. She knew from the minute she started she wanted to compete. Yeah, and and she's done it a lot, and she had that like burning desire to do it. Where for me, I've
managed to smile through tricks.
Who, Jade?
Jade, yeah.
Oh, I know. On her video, she always has a big smile on her face.
And I look grumpy.
You can see the inner performer in her, can't you? All the time. Yeah, I can see why she loves it, absolutely. But so, yeah, I've never really had that burning desire to want to do it.
I haven't, and it's something that I've struggled with because I feel like I should do it.
Yeah, it's almost like for clout, isn't it? Although it doesn't really, I don't know what for. I don't know why I feel like that.
Yeah, I think back in the day, and I don't want to offend anyone by saying this, but I probably will. Back in the day when it was just UK PPC and Miss Pole Dance, actually winning something really, really meant a lot. Like it was a big deal. You got workshops, you travelled from that. Nowadays, it just doesn't have that same recognition. So
I agree with that. I do agree with that.
For me as an instructor, I'm looking at ways to boost my income and to keep me known in the industry. And I just don't think that competing will do that for me.
No, and that's fair enough. And I think, like you say, you've got to want to enjoy it, because like when I was speaking to Jade and Jack Scott Lee, both of them like start prepping, like obviously again, I'm completely clueless to this, so I'm like, what? Start prepping like 6-7 months out, maybe even to a year.
Yeah,
I'm like, nope. That's always been a big one for me, because I work full time and do this on the side. I don't know where, but I feel like I'm pretty much at my max capacity.
Yeah,
I don't know where I would be able to squeeze in the comp training.
Yeah, same. With juggling the kids and working full time, I don't have the energy. And also for me, I'm at a point now where looking after Arthur requires a lot of physical me lifting him. If I injured myself,
of course you've got to put that as your priority now. You have people that are dependent on you now.
Yeah. If I hurt my back and I then couldn't lift him into his he's got like a wheelchair and a specialist high chair, how could I feed him? I can't. I'd have to pay for someone to come in and help me. So yeah, that's another reason why I now wouldn't compete.
Yeah, well, something that I see that you do a lot of as well is heel training.
Oh, I love that.
That is a well, actually, do you know what I find the funny, and this is what I see the most on your Instagram, is your heels breaking from you.
Oh my god, the amount of times I break my shoes.
I know. I've seen
always
it so
like,
many
what?
times.
Like, why have you got another pair of shoes? I'm like, God.
I remember watching one once, and I think you hadn't even put them on, or like you'd done one thing in them and they broke, and I was thinking, how is she this unlucky with shoes?
Well, that was bad, and I do think Pleaser's quality has gone down in the years. So before my recent bad spate, I had one pair of shoes and they did last me 3 years. Granted, I'm training in them a lot more now, but yeah, I go through them in like 6 months easily.
So that is your go-to style?
It is.
Would you say?
Yeah, I think it is now. So I used to be very spinny poled and floaty, but I always loved heels, and I didn't train it because I had a very negative comment from someone a long time ago, and then I felt very, very self-conscious about it.
That's horrible.
Yeah, so I didn't post any of my heel stuff ever, and then I was like, why am I doing this? Why am I letting this comment whirl around in my head? And then after having kids, I just stopped caring. You've
got to though, you're number one for anyone. You're number one. Yeah. So I'm very much like this. I don't care what people think or people say. You can't, because you don't ever want to be in a position where you look back and think, like, imagine in 10 years time and you look back and thought, oh damn, I really wish I trained heels and I didn't because of that one. And that person or whoever it was probably doesn't even impact your life. You don't see them, you don't need to talk to them, but it does. I understand that it impacts quite significantly. It can be horrible, can't it? But I'm glad that you're back. You don't care now, and you're back doing what you enjoy.
And like it's quite interesting. So my followers on Instagram, I've lost so many since I've started training heels. And that's
really
massively, and also from having babies as well.
No.
Yeah, I'm at 32 now, and I was, before having Arthur, I was at 39. So yeah. But then I'm like, do you know what? I don't care, because if you are just following me for something that I don't actually love training, whatever.
Yeah, who cares? It's
just Instagram,
Yeah, it's just Instagram. But you actually, I actually, when I see you doing it, I understand why you enjoy it, regardless if this actually has anything to do with it. But you really work on the anatomy of hill. Well, what a shock that you are studying the hill work, the hill work. But understanding how to move. It just seems to me that anything you take on, you deep dive and you want to understand.
I don't do things by halves, that's for sure.
No, definitely not.
I think with heels as well, like, there is, again, you don't have to be flexible to do heel stuff, but you do need to understand mobility, because if you want to do a nice leg twirl, you don't actually need to be able to do a split to do it, but you need to know how to internally and externally rotate your hips and how you can use that to make your movement look good.
Yeah.
So I do like to apply what I know from my mobility training to my heel stuff to make my dance look dancier.
And it works, because heels are hard. Heels is tough. I feel like everything looks amazing in heels, of course it does, but actually applying it is very, very well. We've seen the amount of fails that you see over Instagram. I live for them. I love them when people fall over. I mean, we've all been there, right? Where you like waddling.
I think most of my videos on my phone, like, you have me flowing, and you have the Instagram ready thing, and then I stop and I just let go of the pole and walk off and fall over.
Crawl.
Or the penguin waddle, where, like, you finished on the floor and you need to get to your camera and you're just on your knees and waddling.
Yeah, we've all done that. I know exactly what you mean. Well, something that I wanted to finish off on really, and I just want to loosely touch on this. It depends on what it means to you and if it's big for you. And I know diet is quite a taken in many different ways. But are you quite big on what you eat? Do you watch? Do you have a diet plan? Do you make sure you get your protein in? Do you not really care?
No, I wouldn't say I don't care, but I don't like count my macros and micros and all of
into the fine detail.
Yeah, I'm not into the fine details. Like, I've always been into eating well. We don't like have takeaways very often. I just don't like the way it always makes me feel. I mean, we do have takeaways, but it's not a regular thing.
No.
I like to cook, so I like to cook with fresh food.
But I do enjoy it. Making your own sauces, and it's enjoyable, isn't it?
Yeah. But equally, I will come home and I will stuff my face with a massive bag of crisps after training. We
all do it. We're all guilty of it.
It's balanced. I'm not big on supplements. That's probably the one thing that I don't really always agree with.
Oh, okay. So it's just that you don't really agree with them as such.
Yeah, I think things like Herbalife and that kind of.
Oh God, yeah, that's not.
Well, I see a lot of fitness people doing it, and I know people are doing it because they need to make more money and they need to sell stuff. But I'll just eat your fruit and veg.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I do take vitamins. I'm quite big on vitamins and supplement, and I do try and get my protein in. But again, I feel like it's a very touchy conversation, but
it is. And I'm like, do whatever you want. Things like Herbalife, please look into it. Look at the some of the studies and the case law on it.
Your research, your law, case law. Do your research.
I was trying to think of an easy way to say that, and I couldn't. But yeah, I take vitamins. I'm still breastfeeding, so I need to make sure that I do keep my vitamin intake up, and I absolutely take vitamin D because we live in the UK and there is no sun.
There absolutely is none.
I don't do things like protein shakes.
Okay.
I do eat meat, so I would have a steak. I
love steak.
I'm prone to getting low iron.
Okay.
And I had that a lot in pregnancy, so I do make sure I eat my iron, and I would have a vitamin with iron if I'm feeling. Ugh.
Yeah. I feel like your dosage of vitamins is very, very, very much needed, and you do feel a big difference. I feel like anyway. But yeah, Emily, thank you so much for joining me. This has been, I could honestly talk to you all day. I feel like there's so much ground that I haven't even covered. This has been an amazing podcast. I feel like even I've got so much value out of this. It's been incredible. You're so knowledgeable.
You can always do like a flexibility one if people want to send questions.
Oh, guys, if you want another one, holla. That's Emily committing. No, but tell everybody where we can find you, what classes you've got going on.
So you can find me bookwhen.com/Emily Laura. It's all of my own stuff, my academy stuff, which usually runs either on a Thursday evening or one-off classes on the weekend. I teach regularly, yeah, that's the word, at My Body Rocks in Reigate, and that's online and in the studio. And I teach a little bit for Studio 224 in Dorking as well. So.
Amazing. Well, Emily, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.